I have read hundreds of books on everything from investing to corporate structure to the psychology of persuasion. And here's the truth. 95% of what they tell you is completely useless when it comes to actually getting rich. So, let me go ahead and save you the thousands of hours I have spent reading that never actually benefited me when it comes to making money. Now listen, do not get me wrong. The books I read were wonderful in their own right. They were fascinating, but they didn't help me get rich. And honestly, you have no time to waste. So these are the 17 books that will actually make you rich. The first thing that you really need to understand is that the type of books you're gonna read to go from $0 to $10,000 a month will be very different to those that you're gonna read in order to hit $100,000 months or even make $1 million a month. So therefore, I actually divided these 17 books into 3 categories, going from $0 to $10,000 a month, $10,000 to $100,000 a month, and $100,000 to $1 million a month. Then I actually threw in a bonus category, which is the books that will help you grow from $1 million a month to $10 million a month and beyond. And honestly, I would say that that is probably the most interesting one. And that's because at that level, macroeconomics actually become the most important thing. That's really when you start to study how the world actually works. You get into books like The House of Morgan, which explains the truth behind the banking system, but we're gonna get to that a little later in the video. Now, the first book on this list almost sets the foundation for everything to come. And by the way, it's also the only fictional work on this list. And I'm talking about The Alchemist. Now, this book tackles the very prerequisite of making money and getting rich, and that's having the guts to actually follow your purpose. Because make no mistake about it, of the next book on the list, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And much like the title of the book suggests, it boils down to the idea that if you're able to conceive it and believe it, well then, you can achieve it. And I'd say that's really the first step towards becoming rich, actually believing that you can, and realizing that it's the only path forward. You see, the book also talks about another pitfall I see far too often in people just getting started. You see, often when you're getting started, you'll get stuck waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the perfect business model, just waiting for everything in order to not get started. And the truth is, as obvious as it seems, is that there's no perfect time. There never was, and there never will be. The beginning of any journey, let alone the journey of getting rich, is gonna be messy. And my friend, that's simply the name of the game. And honestly, being able to navigate through that mess is what will make you successful. And here's where we get to the next book, Atomic Habits. You see, the next book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, teaches you how to do exactly that. You see, we already established that you need to become a person worthy of success. So how do you do that? Well, you are the sum of all of your actions. So to change yourself, you need to change your actions. And obviously you can't just reinvent yourself overnight. So you need to do it in incremental steps by implementing new habits, killing old ones, and keeping the worthy ones. And that's exactly what Atomic Habits teaches you to do. I remember when I read it for the first time, it completely changed how I approached my work and allowed me to stack all of my good habits. Day by day, I kept solidifying my habits until they eventually became second nature in Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. You know, it's funny, I distinctly remember being 17 years old, reading this book and doing one of the exercises where you have to design your life in 3 ways. In the first scenario, you're just scraping by and you write down how much money you need in order to make that happen from your passive investments. In the second scenario, you're living comfortable, but not extravagantly. And once again, you need to calculate how much of a nest egg you need in order for that to happen. And in the final scenario, you calculate how much money you need to go all out. And what you'll come to realize is that if you're being honest with yourself, success is a lot closer than you may think. And the 4-hour work week illustrates this point perfectly in describing the Pareto principle. You see, the Pareto principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, states that 80% of any given output derives from 20% of the input. So in other words, 20% of your clients will make up 80% of your revenue. And the craziest part is that this rule extends far beyond just business. It's pretty much a law of nature. For example, 20% of food causes 80% of weight gain. So regardless of how you frame it, the 80-20 rule allows you to figure out how to work smarter, not harder. Now, the next book we need to talk about is Influence and the Psychology of Persuasion. Now, this is one of the highest leverage skills you can have, is the ability to persuade masses of people. And that's really where Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, this book truly shines. And I feel like this book is very powerful when you read it right before reading the next one, which is Confessions of an Advertising Man. You see, this book paired with David Ogilvy's Confessions of an Advertising Man are pretty much the only marketing books that you will ever need to get rich. Of the next book I'm gonna recommend, which is The Lean Startup. Now, the book talks about the importance of execution plus having a proper feedback loop. Because when you're able to execute fast and have proper feedback, you're gonna be able to quickly pivot off the back of that and tap into the heart of the demand in any given market. I Never Split the Difference is gonna give you the baseline you need in your path to $100,000 a month. It teaches you a method called tactical empathy, which you can use to build trust and rapport. And the result of this, the other person will mimic the same level of empathy for you. Whether you're negotiating with clients, business partners, or potential investors, the techniques in this book will help you make more money. And that's why How to Win Friends and Influence People is perhaps the best book I've read when it comes to understanding human nature. That book and the 48 Laws of Power are your complete guide to human relationships. The 48 Laws of Power teaches you laws of human nature that's actually rooted in history. Now, I also want to give you a disclaimer and say that the 48 Laws of Power can also be used for evil. So make sure you use it wisely. Now, once you've nailed down your marketing, your product, and your relationships, there's one central point that remains. You need to be able to build a bulletproof business. And that means you need to understand the ins and outs of business. So when you're trying to get from $10,000 per month, you can be a bit rough around the edges, but that does not fly when you want to play in the big leagues. Now, sure, you could go out and spend $250,000 on an MBA, or you could just read the Personal MBA, because this book distills everything you need to know about business, and really 99% of the things you'd learn from doing an MBA in the first place. This book talks about everything from operations management and finance to leadership and accounting. And I can promise you that if you read just this book, you'll know more than most business owners. Now, next, let's talk about going from $100,000 a month to $1 million a month. The Intelligent Investor, to really move the needle when it comes to making you more money. And this is not just some get-rich-quick scheme. This is a tried and tested method since 1949. The book outlines everything you need to know about value investing, which is really the only way you should be investing to protect and multiply your wealth with minimal risk. And the next book, Reality Transurfing, is less about astrology, but it is about using the world to your advantage. Reality Transurfing posts a theory that you can manage your reality, shapes the economy. And that's what the book Misbehaving is all about. It's an introduction to behavioral economics. Behavioral economics is one of those areas that simply doesn't matter when you just want to get to $10,000 a month, but it matters a whole lot when you want to get to $100,000 and especially $1 million a month or more. The book explains how investors can use behavioral economics to their advantage. And this is yet another great example of how one simple book can make you rich. Now, let's go from $1 million a month to $10 million a month and further. And this is where things get very, very interesting. Here's where things begin to really shift. To get to $1 million a month and above, you need to analyze the world around you, and you need to understand how things work. But in order to get to $10 million a month onwards, you need to start analyzing history in order to understand the future. And it's at this level you need to get into the most esoteric books. Books that I've been talking about for years on my YouTube. Books like The Creature of Jekyll Island. This book unveils the secrets of the money magicians of the Federal Reserve. Because it's only once you begin to understand how money actually works that you can start to really get wealthy. And I know that when I read this book, it completely opened my eyes to the real world. A world which most people are blind to. But once you understand the Federal Reserve, you also need to understand how the banking system works. And once you understand the Fed and the banking system, you can truly begin to realize your ultimate potential. And that's why these books are so important in making you rich. And that's why the next book I want to talk about, which is The House of Morgan, it's actually a biography of the entire Morgan family and how they created the modern day banking system. I have said this time and time again, but history is doomed to repeat itself. And the only way to truly be able to understand the future is by studying the past. And once you have a firm grasp on the past, you can even begin to start predicting the future. You see, history repeats itself, and you can actually use that to your advantage. Go ahead and think about all the different bubbles in history, everything from the gold rush in the 1850s to the rise of Bitcoin. I mean, what if you'd bought Bitcoin in 2010? Well, if these cycles of boom and bust have happened all throughout history, well, then they're bound to happen again. The key is that you need to be able to spot the trend before everyone else. And that is exactly what Devil Take the Hindmost teaches you. This book will walk you through the major cycles of boom and bust in recent history. And that means that after reading this, you're going to be able to identify these trends. And that, my friend, is how you can multiply your wealth tenfold. Equally, it's also how you can protect your wealth. So that's why it's so important to understand the past in order to understand or even predict the future. You see, in some sense, getting rich is all about doing the right thing in the right order at the right time. I mean, just think about it. You could have had the best idea for a tech startup after the dot-com bubble, but you would have never gotten funding, and vice versa. So that's why it's important to be able to spot the trends as they emerge. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the 17 books that will help you make your first $10,000 a month all the way up to your first $10 million a month. Those are the best books I have used in that time period. If you want to make more than $10 million a month, I can't help you with that because I've never done that. But these books, read at the right time in that order, have helped me the most. And I can tell you the books that I read to start making more than $1 million a month, I still read some of those books when I was dead broke. It was interesting, but I don't feel like it helped me at the right time. And that's why I think it's so important that you read these books. I mean, you can read them for entertainment, even if they don't apply to your current situation. But just understand, when you read these books at the right time, when you're facing the problems that these books will teach you about, that's when it's the most powerful. A lot of these books I reread when it applied more to me and my life situation at that period of time. And it was always so mind-blowing because I would read the book and I'm like, but I've read this before, but why is it that this time I find it so incredible? Like, why has this been so powerful this time? And of course it was because it directly reflected what I was going through at that point in my wealth creation phase. So ladies and gentlemen, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I stayed up very, very late compiling all of these books and just going through all of my physical books, all of my Kindle books, everything to really bring you this specific list. So I hope it was of value to you. And as always, I'll be watching you from afar and I'm rooting for you.